Okay, you're on again. GLT number 3.
Obviously, before the war, I went to Bradford Grammar School, and well, actually I started at Bolton Royd, which is a primary school, where I excelled as being rough and noisy in the playground, and I was told that knitting was not, or sorry, sewing was not my forte.
Right.
I was there with 2 or 3 quite famous, became quite famous people, and Sir William Bulmer, as he became, was there and once sat on me. He was a large fat boy and sat on me, and there were various other people who were quite well. Fattorini is a well-known name, and the daughter was there, or daughters. And then I went to Bradford Grammar School, which I think my Granny Thompson paid for, because father was in the doldrums. And then from there I went to the Bradford Tech, Bradford University it is now, but it was then Bradford Technical College. And I was there for 2 years, and then as I was a member of the Territorial Army when the war broke out, I was called up. Not a very prestigious pre-war career, because I didn't really do anything apart from enjoy rugby. I did enjoy athletics and stuff like that. But as I say, I didn't know my grandfathers at all, but I did know my grannies. Granny Thompson, by the time I was in college, she had moved to Harrogate, and we used to go over regularly for Sunday lunch with Granny Thompson, Big Granny. Little Granny still lived in Bradford, in the same house that she'd been in, well, all the life that I'd known her. They both died in fairly recent times. I mean, when I say recent times, I don't mean recent, I mean within a fairly short time of each other.
Yeah.
Granny Thompson was 90, I think 92, and Granny Calvert was 80 something. I don't know what.
Yeah, no, good long lives.
The fair old age.
Yeah.
And so that more or less covers grandparents. I knew very little about them.
Yeah.
And also, of course, mother and father. We kept moving because I think father kept on having affairs with our neighbours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we moved from Welbury Drive in Bradford to Eccleshill because he's rather smitten by, well, he was a very good looking man. He was smitten with Mrs. Mitchell, who lived next door at number 1.
Right.
And then in Eccleshill he was smitten with Peggy, what was her name, Peggy somebody or other, who was another relative neighbour. She was, the houses were all detached there, and she lived in one, or she and her husband lived in Robertshaw, Peggy Robertshaw. And so we moved from there to Ockley, I'm still talking pre-war.
Yeah. Pre-Second World War.
Pre-Second World War,
Yeah.
yes, of course.
Yeah.
And we moved to Otley to get away from Eccleshill
And Peggy.
and Peggy. And in Otley we had quite a large house because Father by this time had with his mother's aid, bought Geoff Thompson's Durham, and they were beginning to make money. And Belmont was the name of the house on in Otley, and it was a big house.
What was the name of the road it was on, Dad? Can you know?
What?
What was the name of the road?
Well, that's a question I hope you weren't going to answer because I can't ask me because I can't remember.
Oh well,
But it was on the road to Ilkley, but on the wrong side of the river. It wasn't the main road to Ilkley.
Right.
But it was the road to Ilkley through Asquith. It went to Asquith
Right.
and then on to Ilkley. And it was a big house. It had I think it was 7 bedrooms.
Good Lord, oh, nice. Yeah.
And a lot of land.
And there were just the 3 of you living in it?
There were just 3 of us, and a maid.
Right.
And a maid.
Right.
And
Yeah, Dad, your
it
cigar.
cost £1 a week.
Cigar, Dad.
Oh, right. It cost £1 a week rent. That was the sum total.
God, yes.
And it had about, it must have had 2 or 3 acres of land. I mean, there was a market garden as part of the land,
Yeah.
which the gardener ran as a market garden and looked after the gardens of the house itself in payment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, of course, it's still there. And
Is it still a private house?
it's still a private house. The last I heard, it was owned by the man who ran the Otley newspaper,
Yeah.
and the Otley Gazette.
Right.
And I actually met his wife when I was going on my 80th birthday, because there were also 2 or 3 cottages which were part of the estate, in inverted commas. And I was leaning over the gate looking at the back of the house, and this lady came along, and we got talking, and she was the wife of the present owner. And that's where I had my first driving, well, I can't call it a lesson, it wasn't a lesson, experience, I think was the thing. Do you want to hear that?
Yeah, yes. Yes, go on, Dad.
Well, if you can imagine it, there were gates, and then a drive down and swept round in front of this house, and there was a sort of big turnaround in front of the house, and then there were steps up to the front door, and opposite the front door, on the other side of this turnaround area, was a small, about a yard wide strip of grass, and then a big flower bed, at the back of which was a fence with running a rose on the fence, and then it dropped down through laurel bushes to a field, a paddock, which stretched down to the river.
Yeah.
And one day my father's partner, Jim Fee, and his wife came, and they all 4 went out in Father's car, leaving the Jim Fee's car in the stable yard. And my best pal, Hugh Normanson, who was killed in the war, and I decided it'd be a good idea to try and drive it.
How old were you at this time?
I'd be about 14, I would think.
Right.
And being my house, I had first drive. So I drove it down the drive all right, and in front of the house. But then, of course, I had to turn it round, which meant reversing, and reversing towards this flower bed, which had about 2,000 tulips growing in it. And I said to Hugh, this friend of mine, I said, let me know when I'm getting near the grass and I'll stop and go forward. So he yelled out, stop, and there was a thump, and I'd gone over the grass and dropped into the flower bed. So I put it into the car into forward gear and revved up, and tulips went flying all over everywhere.
Yes.
And the car dug itself further and further in until he got itself tangled up at the back with the roses. And by this time I realised that it was beyond my capability to get it out.
Yeah.
So I went to get, I've forgotten his name now, but the gardener who had the market garden,
Yeah.
got him out of his pit, and he came along and with some sandbags and various other things. We got the car out.
Yeah.
And there was the car standing mud spattered in the middle of the drive.
Yes.
With a lot of rose bushes,
Plants. Yeah.
attached to the back end,
Yes.
where it got tangled up with the bumper, and tulips everywhere, all over. And mother and father returned. And I don't think father was ever as angry with me as he was then. He was almost speechless. I got a real first-class bollocking.
Now, was that because you'd taken his partner's car, or because...
It was because of his tulips.
Tulips, right, yeah.
He wasn't bothered about his partner's car.
Right.
Actually, I'd run a big end in the process, which I didn't know about until later.
Yeah.
And they had to sell the thing and buy another one.
Oh dear. Right, with that, on that happy note, let's...